You ever see those Batman movies and hear the quote, "Some men just want to watch the world burn"? That's me. I'm men. And today we're going to turn everything into charcoal. Today we're going to be showcasing a hunter build, but it's not a void hunter. It's not Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun. In fact, it's not Golden Gun at all. Well, technically speaking. Today we're going to be showing off a Blade Barrage build accompanied with Dragon's Breath, and the goal of this build is to do two things. Blow up literally everything in sight, and get your Blade Barrage as fast as humanly possible every single time that you use it. Now, usually I get into the subclass screen first, but I want to actually go into the exotics first this time just to explain how the synergy works. So our exotic armor for this build is going to be Shards of Galanor for the main reason of it gives us 50% of our super back when we land our knives on enemies. As long as you either land your knives on a big yellow bar that has a lot of health, or kill a large group of ads with your Blade Barrage, you will always get your energy back. The one weakness to this, just as an upfront explanation, is if you fire your Blade Barrage at a far distance, it may not land on the target properly, and then you might not get a lot of super back. But as long as you're in a medium to close distance in doing this, you will always get a chunk back no matter what. Now, pairing with Shards of Galanor is going to be Dragon's Breath. Before I explain why it's so good, let me just read you the perks on the weapon. First, we have High Octane. Igniting nearby targets partially replenishes fuel. This weapon refills itself from reserves upon gaining maximum fuel. Then the second perk, Composite Propellant, says rockets embed themselves in stuck targets and periodically eject incendiary fuel that inflicts Scorch. Also for the Catalyst, once you unlock it, it helps replenish your fuel faster, and defeating targets with this weapon causes them to periodically drop fire sprites. Now I'll get to the subclass screen in a second, but in simplistic terms, the idea is you start out your activity, whether it's Onslaught or anything else, and you utilize Dragon's Breath with its Scorching and Ignitions to get large chunks of super very fast, as Ignitions are one of the best ways to get to your super in this game, besides just outright spamming orbs non-stop. It's also just fantastic at locking down entire ad waves and areas all on its own, especially in Onslaught, as the footage you'll be seeing on screen. And thanks to its auto-reloading capabilities on itself, you can go into boss fights while using this as passive damage, plus your Shards of Galanor, then switching to your other weapons, like, let's say, Supremacy, firing that off, then going back to your Dragon's Breath to fire off another igniting rocket, and repeating the process as the boss dies, and in the process, sometimes you can get 2, maybe 3 Blade Barrages too. And that same logic will apply to the ad waves in Onslaught as well. Between you making orbs with Dragon's Breath, making orbs with Shards of Galanor and Blade Barrage, and then your teammates doing the same thing, well, Tether, etc., whatever they're using, you will always have your super up constantly. Alright, let's talk about the subclass screen. So, obviously, we have Blade Barrage as our super. In our abilities, we have Gambler's Dodge to get our melee back whenever we need it, so we can weaken another target. Technically speaking, you could run Marksman's Dodge as well, although in this particular build, since you're using Dragon's Breath, and it auto-reloads itself, this isn't needed as much. But if you want to use this for your other weapons to reload, that's fine too. For your jump, doesn't matter, whatever you'd like. For our knives, you can use whatever you'd like, same thing, just preference. In your grenades, I like to go with Healing Grenade, just in case as an emergency if I'm low health. In our aspects, it's nothing crazy. On your mark, and then knock them down. This provides us that utility of using our knives, and if we get a kill, we have our knife refunded. If we don't, then we can rely on our dodge to get our melee back. For our fragments, we got 5 of them. Starting from left to right, we have Ember of Ashes. You apply more Scorch Stacks to targets, so you apply more Scorch Stacks, and the faster they get to igniting. Number 2, Ember of Mercy. The first part isn't really necessary here, but if it happens, it happens. When you revive an ally, you and your other nearby allies gain Restoration. But the second part is what we like. Picking up Fire Sprites grants you Restoration, and given that our Dragon's Breath Catalyst will give us Fire Sprites everywhere, this is a great choice in a fragment. Number 3, Ember of Imperium. Your solar weapon, Dragon's Breath, or ability, your Blade Barrage. Final blows extend the duration of Restoration and Radiant effects applied to you. So, like we just talked about with Restoration, this will help you keep it up all the time. Number 4 is pretty straightforward and is optional. If you want to, sub this out for like Solace or Benevolence, you could. But this one is Ember of Eruption. Your solar ignitions have an increased area of effect, so your Dragon's Breath makes things explode, and this makes the explosion bigger. And then number 5 is Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and your allies radiant. Pretty simple. You're going to throw your knives everywhere, and you're going to be radiant. For your other 2 weapon slots, you can go with virtually whatever you'd like. I personally went with having Zuli's in our energy slot, because obviously you can't run Sunshot with Dragon's Breath, and Zuli's does kind of a similar thing to Dragon's Breath, just on a smaller scale. It can make things explode as explosive payload, as incandescent. It can make us radiant through headshots thanks to the artifact. It's just really good. And then the top slot is Riptide, because it's just a versatile weapon. Chill Clip lets us debuff enemies thanks to the artifact, and give it, I believe, a 15% weaken debuff on top of everything else. And also, it's good against champions, as it can stun 2 out of 3 champion types, and then freeze the third one, technically speaking. Although I will say, if you're going into a boss phase and you don't like using fusion rifles, then you could take off Riptide and then put on something like Supremacy or Succession in the top slot instead. By the way, here's my artifact in case anybody was curious. This is basically all solar-based. We have Flint Striker, Torch, Kindling Trigger, Heart of the Flame, Revitalizing Blast, and Rays of Precision as our solar kit. And then also we have Wish into Being. While your super is nearly fully charged, ability Final Blows spawn Orbs of Power. So basically just use your knife when you're close to your super, and you'll get a couple of orbs out of that. Alright, while the background footage plays, let's get into the mods. Starting from the top at Helmet, we have 3 mods. Number 1 is going to be Hands-On. You gain bonus super energy with melee kills. Your knives, in this case. Number 2 is going to be Harmonic Siphon, because anytime your Dragon's Breath and your Zulies pop off, you can just make free orbs. And number 3 is Heavy Ammo Finder, just in the event that you're, low on heavy ammo and there's no ammo box nearby. You can put this on, no big deal. For our gloves, we have 3 mods. Number 1 is Heavy-Handed. Your powered melee final blows create Orbs of Power, just to get to your super faster. And then we have 2 copies of Impact Induction, causing damage with a powered melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown, so you get back to your healing grenade faster. As for your chest piece, it's always going to be Resist, 1 Void, 1 Arc, and in this case, 1 Harmonic Resist to cover all 3 flavors. I do want to note that you should have a chest piece with reserves on it in the event that you're getting a Rally Flag, because then you can hold up to 12 Dragon's Breath rockets, which is insane to think. Just think back like maybe a year, 2 years ago, where rockets had like 6 shots, 7 shots, and now we have 12 shots for Dragon's Breath. It's so silly. Now, as for your boots, this is where it gets a little different than normal. So Dragon's Breath, the majority of its purpose and its damage comes from its ignitions, which do not count towards your weapon surges, which means that you don't have to stack triple solar surge on your boots for your Dragon's Breath. Instead, what I do personally is I put 1 solar surge on, and then for the other 2, I go with whatever other weapon I'm going to be using. So for example, if I'm using Supremacy in a boss DPS phase, I'm going to have 2 kinetic weapon surge mods on to increase Supremacy's damage, or whatever weapon that you would like to use instead. Also, if you don't want to do that, you could put recovery mods on in your slots instead, like Recuperation, Better Already, things like that. And lastly, we have our class item. We have 3 mods here as well. Number 1 is Distribution, to reduce all your ability cooldowns when you're using your class ability near targets. Number 2 is Reaper. After using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an Orb of Power, so Dragon's Breath. And then finally, Powerful Attraction, to just automatically pick up all the orbs on the ground when you use your class ability, because they'll be everywhere, given that you're spamming either your super or your Dragon's Breath. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire build. The great thing about this build is it's really versatile. It can do some good damage, it can clear up adways really easily, it can be used in solo content or team content. For example, I actually ended up using this build in my Warlord's Ruin solo flawless run when the dungeon first came out. It was really good on the Ogre boss fight in particular, giving me multiple supers per damage phases, so you can use this basically anywhere that you'd like. But you guys let me know what you think of the build. As always, I will put the dim link down in the description below for the build in case anybody wants to try it out. And you can also follow all the socials while you're down there, just saying. If you do enjoy the build or you just enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated on the way to 40k. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can also leave a like and or comment on the video below. If you don't know what to comment, you can just leave Dragon's Breath as the comment. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.